Today's daf is daf lamed aleph. We are going to begin daf lamed aleph on the top of the Mishnah of Shnei Kedorim. So the Mishnah Shnei Kedorim, which means you have two potters. See, these two potters, they were going one after another into the Shus Harabim. And what happened? V'nitkal hadishin, the first one who was carrying this, the first guy who was carrying the pots, he fell. He stumbled and he fell. And then what happened was like a traffic jam. Not a traffic jam, what do you call it? When one car crashes and then the guy crashed in front of him. So what happened was this first guy, he stumbled and he fell. And then and the second guy crashed into the first guy. So what's the halacha? The halacha is Arishin chayiv b'niskei sheni. The first guy is chayiv for whatever the damage he does to the second guy. That's the halacha. First person is chayav to pay for the damage incurred by the second person. And we're going to understand exactly what that means. So again, just to recap the Mishnah, you have two potters, Shnei Kedorim, two potters that were walking into the Shus Harabim, and the first stumbled. Let's say he stumbled on a bump, and he fell, and the second guy stumbled over the first guy and fell too. So the first guy is chayav to pay for the damage incurred by the second person. Okay, so now the Gemara explains the reason of the Mishnah. Rabbi Yechon says, did not say that our Mishnah is Rabbi Meiri. Did not say that our Mishnah is like the opinion of the Meir. The Amar who says, as we learned before, nitkal, somebody who stumbles, somebody who slips, peishea, somebody who stumbles is considered negligent, and he's going to be chayav. So the you could say that our Mishnah, which says that the first guy is chayav because he stumbled, he's a peishea. Don't say that. Rather, ela filu l'rabbanan, even according to the opinion of the Chacham the Amri, who say onos hu upater, who say that when somebody stumbles and he slips and he falls and he damages, he's pater. Why? Because he's onos. Hacha, in our case, in our Mishnah, he'll agree. The Chacham will agree that the first guy is going to be chayiv. Why? Because the first guy should have stood up. After he fell, he had time to stand up, and he didn't stand up. So since he had enough time to stand up, in other words, our Mishnah is dealing with the case that the first potter guy, the first guy carrying the pots, had enough time, like Rashi says, he had enough time to stand up. So, yeah, exactly. So the fact that he didn't stand up, and he just, it's a bazetz dortin, so he's a pesheya. So now that, so since he didn't do that, so he's chayiv now, like the Rif says, he's chayiv b'niskei sheni, he's chayiv in the second damage. Okay, that is Rabbi Yechon. This is what Rabbi Yechon says, that, so Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak argues and says, Afilu tema, you could even say that the Mishnah is Shaloi Hoyolei Lamed, that it's talking about a case he did not have enough time to stand up. In other words, not like Rabbi Yechon says that he had enough time to stay. That Mishnah is talking about that he did not have enough time to stay, and the B'chol Zay will still be chayav according to Chachamim. Why? Because the guy who slipped should have started screaming and telling the other potter guy, you should have said, watch out, I slipped. Or in the Hasbro, it says, if somebody's crashing, it doesn't beat, it doesn't put on his handlers, it doesn't scream, I'm about to crash, get out of the way. So that shit is Rav Nachman. Now, the one explains Rabbi Yechon as follows. Rabbi Yechon says, no, since he did not stand up, in other words, since he did not, what does it mean he didn't stand up? He didn't have enough time to stand up, so so it's not on him to go and start warning the people behind him. Why? Because he's very preoccupied because of his fall, and he can't think. He can't start thinking now to go and start warning the other guy beforehand. That
he's the word discussing how badly he was in it.
No,
but maybe he's alcohol.
Rabbi Yechon holds that the seconds that a person, it's not about alcohol. Rabbi Yechon holds that when a person falls down, you can't demand from him the few seconds that he falls down. Go ahead and go warn the guy behind you. It's not shaykh. So we're not talking about a condition. We're talking about that the first guy stumbled, he slipped, and he caused the second guy damage. Now, so does he have to pay for the second guy's damage or not? The answer is yes. So basically,
he's still able to get up.
So Rabbi Yechon says is that everybody will say that since he didn't have enough time, he had enough time to stand up, and he didn't stand up, so he's a pesheya. I'm not going to says even if he didn't have enough time to stand up, if the second that he fell, he should turn around and say, guys, be careful. Rabbi Kamah says you can't demand that from somebody.
If he was out cold.
No, obviously.
They haven't got cold down the mamashi here.
Okay, Tanan, we learned the Mishnah. Now this is a Mishnah, and the daf-yomi base says two people that were walking in the Shus Rabim, one was carrying a beam, and one was carrying a jug. So like this. We have this a few times, and then we're going to have this on daf-yomi base tomorrow. If let's say you have somebody, you're walking in the Shus Rabim, the first guy was carrying a beam, and the second guy was carrying a jug. Now, the what? Now, so what happened? So the guy is in front of him. He's going slow because he's carrying a big beam, and the guy behind him is rushing with his jug. So what happened? And because of that, the guy's rushing, and he whacked into the kaira. So and his chavis got broken. So what's it then? Potter. The Baal HaKeda is Potter. Why? Because he was walking normally, and the Baal HaChavis was the one who rushed things, so he's Potter. Now, Im Ahmad Baal Keda. Now, Baal Keda doesn't mean Baal Keda reading. The Taylor, Baal Keda.
He also stopped to get
exactly. Im Ahmad Baal Keda. If the Baal Keda now gets up from, he stops, the Baal Keda stops, and now the Baal HaChavis now starts continuing weiter, and the Chavis now bumped right into the Chavis, into the Keda, and broke, so all this, the Baal Keda is chayiv. Now, that's what the Mishnah says. The Mishnah says that if the Baal Keda was walking, and the guy jumped into him, and he's Baal Chavis, then he's going to be chayiv. But if the Baal Keda, but if the guy, if the Baal Keda stopped, and then the Baal HaChavis bumped into him, so then the Baal Keda is going to be chayiv. So the Gemara says, my love, Mistama, the Mishnah means is she'amad lekatif, that the person who was carrying the kaira was fixing up the beam. He was adjusting the beam on his shoulders. The orcheu, which is very, very normal. Oktani, and nevertheless, what does the Mishnah say? The Mishnah says chayiv. The Mishnah says he's chayiv. And what's the reason why he's chayiv? Must be the Havli Lazar, because he should have forewarned the guy in back of him that he's stopping to fix his beam. So what do we see from the Mishnah? We see from the Mishnah is that even when a person is totaled, even when a person is preoccupied, nevertheless, he has to go. It's incumbent upon him to warn the guy behind him to be careful.
Different than if there would be three people, right? Let's say there was somebody in front.
No, we're going to learn about that in a second. Okay, so the more answers it says, like, you don't have a raya to Reb Nachman Bar Yitzchak that Oile Lazar Eliezer. Why not? Because we're talking about, the Mishnah is talking about, we're not talking about that the Baal Keda was, I like saying the Baal Keda over here, was standing to adjust his pekel, rather K'sha'amad Lafush, that he stopped to rest. And since it's not the derech for people to go start resting in the Shus Rabim, so he was acting in a way, as we learned, in a way of Mishunah, so therefore he's chayiv, since he acted in an abnormal way, he's chayiv in damaging the chavis. That's how Rashi explains. Okay. So now the Gemara says, Abba, but in the case that Omer the Katif, or in the case that he stood to adjust his pekel, so we're saying now, we're not talking about Omer the Katif, Omer Lafush. Omer Lafush, since it's Mishunah, he should have said something. He didn't say something. He's chayiv in his zaken. Now, what about Omer the Katif? What if he goes ahead and he stood to adjust his pekel? Then what would happen? Potter. The pashtus, he would be potter. Why? Because it's not on him to go and start warning people because he's taught it. Instead of the sefer, the Mishnah is saying, and if the Vim Amar Loi Lebal Chavis Amoid, instead of the sefer in the Mishnah saying, that if the Baal Keret tells the Baal Chavis stand, and he didn't stand, and in other words, if the Baal Keret tells the Baal Chavis stand, and he didn't stop, and because of that, the Chavis knocked into the Keret and broke, so the Allah is, the Baal Keret is potter. So Fred the Gemara he should be mechalik and teach this case. In other words, teach that when the Baal Keret stops without warning him and saying, Bemed, what are more than when is the Baal Keret going to be chayiv? Is Kishama Lafush. Ava Omer the Katif Potter. And the fact that the Mishnah skipped to a different case, it went to a different case. It's speaking about that he's being mazur the Balabayas, Why didn't the Mishnah say this case? Mashma, that the case beforehand, when he did not warn, he's chayiv in any case, even if it was Amad Le Katif, even if he stopped to just a speckle. So the Gemara says, no. The Gemara says that the Mashma teaches us the Avgav, the Amlafush, the Chiddush is that even the Balkera stopped to rest in a Rosh Hashanah, which is Dav Rishuna, nevertheless, Kika Le, the Balabais Amaid, when the Balabais tells the Bal Chavis to stop, the halacha is he will be potter because he told him, even if it's Mishuna. Okay, now the Gemara says, Gemara is going to try to bring now another raya. Toshma, come, I'll bring you another raya. What's the raya neged gasravechman? What did the Mishnah say? Hakadarin, which means potters, ve'azagogin, and glazers. These are people that are either sell pots or sell glass. What happened? They were walking one after another. Now, Nitka Rishim and Afro, the first person stumbled and he fell in the Shizarapi. And what happened? And the second one fell on the first guy. And and the second guy fell on the first guy. On the third guy still fell on the second guy. So Allah was like this. Rishoin Chayiv Meniski Sheni. The first guy is chayiv in the nezek of the second guy. Why is the first guy chayiv? Because he stumbled and he caused damage to the second guy. Now the sheni chayiv in iskishlishi. The second guy is chayiv in the nizakin of the third one. Now the Brisa says, if the and we're going to explain this, if the first, second, and third guy got hurt or damaged because of the first guy, then the halach is Rishon Chayiv and Iske Kulam. The first guy is Chayiv in all damages. Now, let's see that. Now, V'im Hizuru Zeh. Now, if they warned each other, in other words, each one warned the next one, the halach is and they're all going to be potter. That's what the Mishnah says. So you have these Kadon and Zagogin walking to Rosh Hashanah. 3 guys, one guy slipped, damaged the second guy damaged the third guy. If it was the fault before that, so each one is going to be chayiv on the other person. If it's the fault of the first person is chayiv, and if they damage one, if they warned each other, then they're going to be potter. Yeah. So what do we see from here? We see that in the case that everyone fell, the pile up, everyone will be chayiv for the one behind it. My love, Mustama, what's the kavanah of the brisa? The chayiv in even the case shaloi hayalahen lamed. They didn't have enough time even to stand up. And nevertheless, what does the brisa say? The brisa says he's going to be chayiv. Why? Because they should have warned and they didn't warn. So now the question is on Yechanan, who holds that Tarut is Potter. The we see from here that the reason why why they chayiv, they're going to be chayiv because they had to warn and they didn't warn. So the Gemara says no. The Gemara says, look, that's not what the Brisa is talking about. The Brisa is talking about Sha'aya Lehen Lamid. The Brisa is talking about a case where they had the opportunity to stand up and they did not stand up. Aval, the Mishnah says, the Gemara says, Lo'ya Lehem Lamid. If they did not have enough time to stand up, what will be the halacha? Halacha will be potter. If they did not have time, then it would be potter. So Yachi, if so, the question is, Adatani, instead of the same as saying, potter, if they warn each other, then they're potter. So liflei v'lisni b'dida. Let the Mishnah, let the Tana distinguish and teach the former case itself. When are we talking about Shahayla and Lamed? Where did they have the opportunity to stand up? But if they did not have the opportunity to stand up, then they are potter. So where says Al-Kamashmalan teaches us, even if they had the opportunity to stand up, when they at least warn each other, the halach is they are going to be ptur and potter. Amar Rava says, Rishon chayiv b'niski sheni. Now, the first one who stumbled is chayiv to pay for the damage of the second one. When? Bein b'niski, for whether he himself, his body damaged the person, bein b'niski memene, whether his property damages the chiddush. So the first one who stumbled, it doesn't matter if his body damages a person, or his, let's say, memene damages a person, he's going to be chayiv. Now, sheni, the first guy who stumbled, of the second guy, no. The first guy went ahead and stumbled. He fell and he damaged the second guy. Doesn't matter if his body hurt somebody from the second guy.
So this is not talking about
No. No. Either he hurt beniski gufa or beniski memene, he's going to be chayiv. However, the sheni chayiv beniski shlishi when beniski gufa. The second guy who stumbles only if his body damaged the person. Avaloi beniski memene, but not with the nezik of the mum. It's like beir. Adam.
The thing went into his beam. The second guy has a beam, and the third guy has a glass. It's not here from his beam.
Yeah, because the first one, the first one, Adam.
Then damaged the earth.
What's the chilek? What's the difference between them? Because the first one is we say Adam Amazik. Adam Amazik is chayiv Saihim Sais Kalim. Mashenki, and the second guy we look at Beir. Beir only Beir v'lei b'Kalim. So only the Beir will be chayiv the person, but not the Kalim. So now the Gemara says Me'manoshach. Whichever way you look at it, it's difficult to understand. If Rava maintains that the person who stumbles is considered b'sheah, so sheninam the chayiv, the second person should be chayiv. And he need galap b'sheah, and the person who stumbles is not considered b'sheah, then I feel sheninam the potter. Yeah, and the second guy, then the first guy should not be chayiv. So make up your mind. So the Gemara says like this: Rishon vadai b'sheah. The first is certainly considered. You guys are getting nervous between Sheni and Rishon, right? You don't want to be. No one wants to be the first one here. Rishon vadai b'sheah. The first one is certainly considered a b'sheah, and therefore is chayiv to pay the damage caused by both his body and his property. Sheni, the second person, igufim mechayiv, is chayiv to pay damage caused by his body. Why? The heavily lamei v'le'olat, because he had the opportunity to stand, he did not stand. Amemene potter, but for damage caused by his property that was lying there and caused a third person to stumble and fall, he is potter. Why? Darmalei hi bida, because he can say, I did not. I bida lava no krisa. This is what I was telling you. I did not dig this pit. In other words, I did not cause this bait. Since it was the first person who stumbled and brought about the matzah where the items of the second were lying on the ground, the second is not chayiv. Okay, so now the Gemara says, Mason, when asked you a shaila, when it arises a shaila to Rava's statement from the Brisa that comments on this case, kulon chayavin al niske gufun. All of them are chayiv to pay for damages caused by their bodies. And they're potter from damage caused by their property. My lava filarishin. The Brisa is saying that even the first one is mashma that he's potter for damage caused by his mamainai. Gemara says, loy. What the Brisa means is labar mirishin, except for the first one. It says all of them. What about the Rava kulan? When we say all of them, it's not going on the mamainai, it's going on anizakin on those who incur damages and are excluded, and excludes the first one that only caused damage to others. So the Gemara asks, hi, mai, what's pshat over here? If you say that it includes even the first one, this is why it says all of them. If you say that it's referring to all except the first one, then my kulan, you're using a terminology which is misleading. Why is it all of them is used? Listening anizakin. Teach those who incur damages is archive to turn to the damage caused by their bodies, but are potter from paying damage caused by their mamainai. Rav says a new pshat. Rishon chayiv. The first one is chayiv when ben beniski gufay the sheni. The first one is chayiv both for injury caused to the body of the second person and ben beniski memani the sheni. So the first one is chayiv for injury caused to the body of the second and for damage caused to the property of the second. V'sheni chayiv beniski shlishi. And the second is chayiv to pay damage for iske gufay avalei beniski memani, but not with damage of his property. My time, what's the reason to avalei bait? Because it is the case of Beir. You don't find, as we learned many times, that Beir is not chayiv for Kelim. So the Gemara says, this works so well according to Shmuel the Amar, who says, Kol takala, who says that any obstacle that was placed in a Rosh Hashanah is Beir, who is considered a Beir. But according to Rav, the Amar, Rav says that a person, if a person is mafker, all the hazardous objects, so that's considered a Beir. And he but if it does not be mafker, then Mike Lemar. Then what are you going to say? The second one who fell obviously was not mafker ownership of his body. So why is he parted from damage he caused to Kalim as though he were Beir? He was a mafker. So the answer it says, La'olam kedamar mikara. MS is really, as we said initially, that he makes a difference between damages caused by another body and damages caused by his memeni. You had a question, Kula Chayavin. You had a question of, it says, and all of them are chayiv to pay for the damage caused by their bodies. but are putter from paying for Memainai. Targument of Adam Barmiyan Kameh Ravina. It's like he said, Shahusku Kalim Kalim. We're talking about a case where Kalim were damaged by Kalim. In other words, it's not the body, but the Kalim of the second that were damaged by the property of the first. And since the broken Kalim of the first had the status of a bur, the owners putter from liability for damage caused to the Kalim of others, because it's very related Kalim. Omar Mar, last thing, the Mar said, if they fell because of the first one, the first one is chayav to pay for the damage of all of them. How do they all fall because of the first? Papa says, Papa says it's a case where he blocked the road like a skeleton. In other words, he's filling the entire width of the road and causing the rest to stumble over the different parts of the body. The Zvid Amar says no. It's tichutra de samyusa. He fell like diagonally like a blind man's cane, and they all stumbled over him. Okay, stop here.